I read the message 3 times before it actually sank in. We're letting you go. Your company card has been deactivated. Figure out how to get home yourself. I was standing in the middle of a hotel lobby in Sao Paulo, my suitcase still beside me, my phone trembling slightly in my hand. Around me, people moved like nothing had happened, rolling luggage, laughing, speaking Portuguese, living their normal lives. I checked my wallet. $40. That was all I had left. A strange kind of silence filled my head, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that blocks everything out. No panic, no tears, just emptiness. Thousands of miles from home, no backup plan, no warning, just a message. I typed back slowly, carefully, like every word had weight. Thank you for letting me know. I hit send and sat down on the nearest chair, trying to remember how to breathe. If you've ever been suddenly fired like I was, and you're curious how I turned things around and destroyed his reputation, then hit the like button, because this story is only just beginning. My name is Lillian Moore. I'm 32 years old. I'm a single mother to a 6-year-old girl named Ivy, the kind of kid who still sleeps hugging the same stuffed rabbit she's had since birth. Her father left when she was just a baby, so it's always been just the two of us, me, trying to hold everything together. I had been working at Halcyon Leather Company for 4 years. We produced high-end handbags, the kind people save months to afford. I wasn't a designer or anything glamorous. I was a sourcing coordinator. That meant I found the people behind the product, the leather, the hardware, the fabric, the hands that made everything possible. It wasn't easy work. It meant late nights, early calls across time zones, constant pressure. But I was good at it, really good. I knew how to talk to people, how to listen, how to build trust where others couldn't. Because suppliers aren't just numbers. They're people. My boss, Victor Hale, never saw it that way. He was 45, always dressed perfectly, always smelling like expensive cologne, and always reminding me how replaceable I was. You're lucky to be here, he used to say. There are hundreds of people who could do your job. I would smile and say, I understand, because I had a daughter to feed, because I couldn't afford not to. You know, this story is fictional, brought to life by artificial intelligence to make it more vivid and engaging. I believe you will feel something authentic and profound, lessons hidden within each moment. So, let's continue. 2 months earlier, everything had still seemed manageable. I was called into Victor Hale's office without warning. He didn't look up right away, just kept scrolling through something on his tablet like I wasn't even there. We have a problem, he finally said. That was all the context I got. Our main leather supplier in Argentina is threatening to walk. He continued, still not making eye contact. If they pull out, our entire spring line collapses. I frowned. Do we know why? He shrugged, like it didn't matter. That's your job to figure out, just like that. No details, no background, just responsibility. I'll reach out to them today, I said. No, he cut in sharply. You're not calling, you're going there. I blinked. To Argentina, yes. You'll fix it in person, whatever it takes. The words felt heavier than they should have. For how long, I asked carefully. A few weeks, maybe longer. Stay until it's done. My chest tightened. I have a daughter. He finally looked at me then, but there was no sympathy in his eyes. Then, make arrangements. You're not the only working parent in the world. Lillian. It wasn't a discussion. It was an order, that night. I sat at the edge of Ivy's bed while she hugged her stuffed rabbit, asking me why I looked sad. I told her I had to travel for work, just for a little while. I promised I'd be back soon. She nodded, trying to be brave, but her fingers tightened around my sleeve like she didn't believe me. I didn't believe myself either, but I still packed my bags, because saying no wasn't an option. Not when everything we had depended on that job, the night before I left. Ivy wouldn't let go of me. She wrapped her small arms around my waist, pressing her face into my shirt like she could somehow stop time. Don't go, Mommy, she whispered. Please don't go. I knelt down, brushing her hair away from her face, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "I'll be back before you know it," I said softly. "Before your birthday." "I promise." Her eyes searched mine, as if she could tell how fragile that promise really was. "I'll count the days," she said. That was the part that broke me. The flight felt endless. Every hour in the air was another hour further away from her. When I finally landed in São Paulo, the city felt overwhelming from the moment I stepped outside. The language, the noise, the unfamiliar streets, everything moved fast, and none of it included me. I took the cheapest ride I could find to a modest hotel arranged by the company. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't comfortable either. A narrow bed, thin walls, and just enough space to remind me I was alone. The next morning, I started working immediately. Emails, calls, messages across time zones. I spent hours trying to understand what had gone wrong with the supplier. Every conversation required patience, careful wording, and a level of emotional energy I didn't feel like I had left. To save money, I skipped proper meals and grabbed whatever was cheapest nearby. I walked instead of taking taxis. I stretched every dollar, knowing I couldn't rely on anything beyond what the company covered. At night, I would sit on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, waiting for Ivy's voice. Each day felt heavier than the last, but no matter how exhausted I was, I couldn't afford to fail. The supplier's workshop wasn't in the city. It took nearly an hour on a crowded bus to reach it, passing through neighborhoods that felt far removed from the polished image our company liked to present. By the time I arrived, the air smelled faintly of leather and dust, something raw and real. That's where I met Mateo Alvarez. He was in his early 60s, with weathered hands and calm, observant eyes. This wasn't just a business to him, it was a family legacy. 3 generations had built that workshop from the ground up, shaping leather into something valuable with patience and skill. His wife, Elena, greeted me with tea and a polite smile, though I could sense the hesitation behind it. "So," Mateo said, studying me carefully, "tell me why your company suddenly remembers we exist." There was no hostility in his tone, just honesty. I didn't rush to defend anyone. "I'm here to understand what's not working," I said, "from your side." That seemed to surprise him. For the next few hours, we talked, not negotiations, not numbers at first, just truth. They demand lower prices every month. Mateo said, faster delivery, more volume, but never once do they ask if it's possible. Elena added quietly, "They speak to us like we are machines, not people." I felt a familiar weight settle in my chest. I had heard that tone before, directed at me. "I'm sorry," I said, "and I meant it." Mateo shook his head. "You are not the one we have a problem with." That was the moment I made a decision. I wasn't going to push them. I wasn't going to repeat the same mistakes my company had made. Instead, I asked questions. I listened. I took notes not just on numbers, but on concerns, limitations, and expectations. Respect became the center of every conversation. Slowly, something began to shift. The tension in the room softened. The distance between us started to close. For the first time since I arrived, this didn't feel like damage control anymore. It felt like the beginning of something real. Over the next several days, I stopped thinking like someone sent to fix a problem and started working like someone building a partnership. I went back to the workshop every morning, sitting down with Mateo and Elena, reviewing every detail piece by piece: pricing, timelines, production capacity, payment schedules. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was forced. Instead of pushing for lower costs like my company had done before, I focused on balance. If we guarantee consistent orders, I suggested one afternoon, pointing to my notes, you can plan production more efficiently. That reduces pressure on your team and stabilizes your pricing. Mateo leaned back, considering it, and your company agrees to realistic delivery timelines. Yes, I said firmly. No last-minute demands, no impossible deadlines. Elena exchanged a glance with him. It wasn't agreement yet, but it wasn't rejection either. We kept going. Day after day, refining terms, adjusting expectations, building something that actually made sense for both sides. It wasn't just about numbers anymore, it was about trust. I worked late into the night back at the hotel, reviewing documents, drafting proposals, double-checking every detail. My laptop became my entire world. Calls with the office came at odd hours. Always the same question from Victor. Is it done yet? I would explain that real agreements took time, that forcing things now would cost more later. He never liked that answer, but I kept going anyway. By the end of the second week, everything started to come together. A structured agreement, fair pricing, clear timelines, a long-term commitment that would benefit both sides. That was when Matteo said something I didn't expect. "We only want to work with you," he said simply. I blinked. "I'm just the coordinator." "No," he replied calmly. "You're the only one who listens. If we continue, it will be through you." I didn't fully understand the weight of those words at the time, but I wrote the agreement accordingly, and slowly, quietly, a deal worth nearly $12 million began to take shape. What I didn't realize at the time was how fragile everything still was. Back at the hotel, my phone never stopped buzzing. Messages from Victor came in at all hours, each one sharper than the last. "Why isn't it signed yet? What's taking so long? I don't need excuses. Lillian, I need results." I tried to explain. I told him this wasn't just a transaction, that rushing would destroy the trust I had spent days building, but every time I spoke, it felt like he wasn't listening at all. To him, this was just a delayed contract. To me, it was the only reason the deal still existed. Then one evening, he insisted on joining a call with Matteo. I hesitated before agreeing, but I didn't have a choice. The moment the call started, I knew it was a mistake. Victor interrupted constantly, cutting Matteo off mid-sentence. He laughed at things that weren't jokes, made comments that didn't translate well, and spoke with a tone that felt dismissive, like he was talking down to someone instead of working with them. I tried to steer the conversation back on track, but it kept slipping. Matteo's expression changed slowly. Not anger, something colder. When the call finally ended, there was a long silence in the workshop. Matteo looked at me, then at the empty screen. "That man," he said quietly, "does not respect anyone." I felt my chest tighten. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "You are not him." But the damage had already been done. The next few days were harder. Conversations became shorter, more cautious. The warmth that had been growing between us was suddenly guarded. I found myself working twice as hard, just to keep things from falling apart. Rebuilding trust that should never have been broken. And every time my phone lit up with Victor's name, I felt the same sinking feeling, like everything I was trying to build could collapse at any moment. By the third week, everything was finally ready. Every detail had been negotiated. Every concern had been addressed. The agreement sat neatly printed in a folder on my desk. Waiting to be signed the next morning, Matteo had invited his family to be there. For him, this wasn't just business. It meant something. For the first time in a long while, I felt proud, not just relieved, not just finished. Proud. I had taken something broken and turned it into something real. A partnership worth $12 million. Enough to secure Halcyon Leather Company's entire spring production. All that was left was the signature that evening. I went down to the hotel lobby to double-check everything. I wanted to be sure nothing could go wrong. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting another impatient message from Victor. Instead, I saw something else. A single message. Cold. Final. "We're letting you go. Your company card has been deactivated. Figure out how to get home yourself." I stared at it, not fully understanding. Then I checked the card. Declined. Again. Declined. It was real. After everything. After the weeks of work, the sleepless nights, the missed calls from my daughter, the birthday I had promised I wouldn't miss. This was how it ended. No warning, no explanation, just a message. I sat down slowly, the noise of the lobby fading into something distant and unreal. People walked past me, laughing, talking, living their lives like nothing had changed, but mine had. At first, there was shock, then nothing, no anger, no tears, just emptiness. I looked at the folder in my bag, the unsigned agreement, the one that would save the company that had just abandoned me, and for the first time, a different thought entered my mind. Clear. Cold. What now? If you think firing me and leaving me stranded was justified, comment support. If you think it was arrogant and cruel, comment oppose. I really want to know what you think, because sometimes one decision shows you exactly who someone really is. I didn't go back to my room. Instead, I picked up my bag and walked straight out of the hotel. The night air felt different, sharper, clearer, like something inside me had finally shifted. I took the same bus back to Mateo's workshop, holding the folder tightly in my hands. By the time I arrived, the lights were still on inside. Mateo and Elena were there, going over documents for the signing the next morning. They both looked up when I walked in. Lily and Mateo frowned slightly. Is everything all right? I didn't sit down. I didn't soften it. They fired me. I said. The words sounded strange out loud, flat, almost unreal. Elena covered her mouth. Mateo's expression hardened instantly. After everything you've done, they canceled my card too. I added quietly. I have enough money for maybe a couple of days. After that, I don't know, for a moment. No one spoke. Then Mateo glanced at the folder in my hands. The agreement, he said slowly. What do you want to do? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean I mean exactly that? He replied. This contract, it's built around you. Every condition, every approval it goes through you. That's how we agreed to it. I felt my grip tighten slightly, but I don't work for Halcyon anymore. Mateo nodded once. Exactly. So why would I sign with them? The realization came slowly. But when it did, it hit hard. Without me, there was no deal. They'll send someone else, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. They can try, Mateo said calmly, but we won't accept it. We built this with you, not with your boss. Elena stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. There are other companies who have been asking to work with us. Better terms, more respect. Mateo met my eyes. One of them is Aurelia Lux. They've been waiting for an opportunity. I felt something loosen in my chest, something I hadn't even realized was there. You're saying, I hesitated. I'm saying, he continued, we walk away from Halcyon, and we build something new, with people who understand value. And for the first time since that message, I realized I actually had a choice. The next morning, everything moved faster than I expected. Mateo didn't hesitate. He made the call right there in front of me, placing his phone on the table as it rang. When Victor answered, his voice carried that same impatient edge I knew too well. Mateo. Good. Are we ready to sign? No, Mateo said calmly. We are not signing. There was a pause, then a sharp shift in tone. What do you mean, we have an agreement? We had an understanding with Lillian. Mateo replied, You fired her. That ends everything. Victor tried to argue, to negotiate, to push. I could hear it even without the speaker on full volume. But Mateo didn't raise his voice. He didn't waver. We do not work with people who treat others without respect. He said, Goodbye. And just like that, it was over. Halcyon lost the deal. That same afternoon, Mateo introduced me to Aurelia Lux. Their office was nothing like what I was used to. Calm, professional, but without that constant pressure hanging in the air. The woman who met me, Isabella Cruz, shook my hand with a genuine smile. Mateo speaks very highly of you, she said. Tell me about your work. So I did. Honestly, not just the polished version. I told her about the relationships I built, the challenges, even what had just happened. She listened, really listened. When I finished, she leaned back slightly and asked a question no one had ever asked me before. What do you need to succeed? I didn't answer right away, because no one had ever cared before. I told her about balance, about wanting fair pay, about needing respect, and time to be present for my daughter. Isabella nodded. Done. Just like that. No hesitation, no dismissal. I accepted the offer, not because I had nowhere else to go, but because, for the first time, I was choosing where I belonged. Everything changed faster than I thought possible. Aurelia Lux arranged my flight home that same day, when I finally walked through my front door and saw Ivy run toward me. None of the fear, the stress, or the exhaustion mattered anymore. I held her tightly and promised myself one thing. I would never let anyone put me in that position again. A few weeks later, I returned to São Paulo, but this time everything was different. Aurelia Lux handled everything: housing, transportation, a schedule that allowed me to fly home regularly. More importantly, they treated me like I mattered. When I spoke, people listened. When I made decisions, they trusted me, and when I succeeded, they acknowledged it. The partnership with Mateo's workshop became the foundation of our new collection. Within months, the products launched, and they sold out faster than anyone expected. The company grew rapidly, and so did my role. I was promoted, given more responsibility, and for the first time in my life, I felt secure, not just financially, personally. Meanwhile, Halcyon Leather Company began to fall apart. Without Mateo's materials, their production suffered. Quality dropped. Orders were delayed. Clients lost trust. What was supposed to be their biggest season turned into a failure they couldn't recover from. And Victor, he lost his position. Word spread quickly in the industry, not just about the failed deal, but about how he treated people. Suppliers refused to work with him. Companies hesitated to hire him. His reputation didn't collapse overnight. It unraveled piece by piece. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to fight back. I simply stopped holding everything together for someone who never valued it. Because the truth is simple. Your worth doesn't disappear when someone fails to see it. It just means you're in the wrong place. Through this story, I've realized 3 powerful lessons. First, never let anyone define your worth based on how they treat you, because the way people see you often says more about them than it does about you. Second, the right opportunities don't come from forcing yourself to stay where you're not valued, but from having the courage to walk away and choose better. And third, respect is not something you beg for, it's something you build, protect, and refuse to compromise on. Looking back, I understand now that everything I went through wasn't just about losing a job. It was about finding my voice, my confidence, and my place in a world that finally recognized what I could do. So I want to ask you, which lesson resonated with you the most? Was it knowing your worth, choosing the right environment, or standing firm on respect? If this story made you feel something, even just a little, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who might need this message, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue these journeys together.